Let's have words. Let's have words. Say what it's all about. We're gonna say what it's about. We're gonna talk it out.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Let's Have Words. I'm your host, Lara Samuels. Happy New Year. I hope you all had a good holiday. So we are a program that comes to you live every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We're broadcasting from Southern New Hampshire on WWHR Internet Media. So we're here every Sunday, and just a little history for folks that aren't necessarily familiar with the sequence of events leading up to Let's Have Words. Let's Have Words was originally a poetry open mic that occurred every Wednesday night at the Hearing Room, which was an art center in Lowell, Massachusetts. And then COVID hit, and we went online for a little while, and then eventually we sort of took a hiatus and then came out the other side as a talk show. And nobody is certain exactly how that transformation took place. But now, instead of being a poetry open mic, we are actually a talk show. So the way the format of the show is basically that I talk to you for a little while about some particular topic, and then most of the time we have a guest that comes on. We talk to the guest for a little while, and then we open up the phones and or chat for people to come in and participate in the conversation. So that's kind of how it goes. So you never know what you're going to get on Let's Have Words. We really are open to many different topics, ranging from politics to arts and culture, science and technology, and so you never know what you're going to get. So, for example, we've had this is our fourth show. So last week we talked to Carrie Howard, who is a licensed professional counselor. She actually is from the area, but she works in Wisconsin. She has her practice there in Wisconsin. And we talked about the alarming trend of depression and anxiety in teenagers. So that's kind of her area of expertise. So we talked a little bit about that. Talked about, some of the potential causes, some of the, mostly speculation, right? Because nobody knows exactly why. But, and we talked about some of the, coping mechanisms and solutions and things like that. So that was an interesting discussion. And then the week before that, I talked to Lee Webster. She is a funeral reform advocate, and she actually, one of her main things is to advocate for green funerals. So we talked about green burials, green funerals. That was a fascinating discussion. And the week before that, we talked with Joe Laporto about bluegrass music. So really, we're just bouncing around in different topics, and you never know what you're going to get. And you might be sitting there thinking, this is interesting. Here is this person talking to me, and she's got horns and wings and some strange stuff coming out of her head. Well, the reason for that is that, here, let me move to the side so you can see him better. You may or may not recognize that character as Baphomet or Baphomet, depending on how you want to pronounce it. And tonight's topic, we're actually going to talk a little bit about Satanism, believe it or not. So that's our topic of discussion for the evening. What actually happened, just to fill you in a little bit on what goes on behind the scenes here, is that we did have a guest that was going to come on, Mindy Mesmer, and she was going to talk to us about a cancer cluster that was identified in Merrimack, New Hampshire, and the potential association with industrial pollution. So that was going to be our guest for the evening, but unfortunately we had to postpone that. So hopefully that will happen next week. Okay, so we were scrambling around trying to come up with something to do for this week's broadcast, and we did have the idea previously about just kind of having some shows where we just opened, picked a topic and kind of discussed it, not necessarily with somebody who is an expert in the area or somebody who, instead of having a guest that, was super knowledgeable. We would just sort of pick a topic and open it up for discussion. So this is one of those shows. So we're just kind of we've kind of picked a topic and we're opening it up for discussion. So I'm gonna be but I did invite a guest on the show just so it wouldn't be me just sitting here rambling away. So I invited a guest on the show, friend of mine and resident, known to many people in the hearing room community, Conrad. So I spent a long time trying to pronounce his name, so let's see if I get it right. Tachowski. So this is Conrad Tachowski, who's going to be coming on. He'll, I'm sure, tell me later on how I did. He'll give me a grade on the pronunciation. But from now on, I'm just calling him Conrad. Anyway, he'll be coming on the show. He's not an expert in, he's not a Satan scholar, if there is such a thing. It's just that this is a topic that interests both of us, and hopefully interests some of you as well, and we can have a discussion about it. So I'm going to bring him on in a few minutes so we can start the discussion. I do want to just start off with my little, some of the things that I'm thinking about when I think about Satan. First of all, for full disclosure, I'm an agnostic. I am not a Satan worshiper. I don't believe in Satan as an entity. I don't believe in evil, even the I don't believe in Satan as the embodiment of evil. I don't believe in supernatural things, ghosts, demons, nothing. I don't believe in any of that stuff. I'm an agnostic. So I leave the door open for many possibilities, but I'm not sure that I settle quite on anything. However, I am interested in Satan as a symbol and a metaphor, and also as a religious symbol. Just his how he's changed, and sometimes her. I don't know if you've ever watched the Twilight Zone episode, and I'm the name is escaping me, but there's a Satan figure in one of the Twilight Zone episodes who's fantastic, and Satan is a woman in that particular show. So who knows, right? How Satan's going to manifest? Not always. And Baphomet back here is half is a collection of opposites. So he is half man, half woman, and half good, half evil, half light, half dark. He's a collection of opposites. So so you never know. Satan has changed a lot over the years. He's been, his origins go way, way back, of course. And Satan shows up in many manifestations in different religions, and as a lot of different religions over time have some sort of Satan-like figure. Not all of them do. Some of them have, a collection of demons, pantheism, of course, but some of them do have a sort of a Satan-like figure, and so he's permeated, all sorts of religious traditions, all sorts of cultural traditions. His present incarnation in our culture, in American, when I say our culture, I mean American, in American society, right, which is influenced by a lot of things. But this depiction of him as sort of a goat with horns and hooves and all that took some time to develop. He was pieced together. She was pieced together over time. She developed hooves at some point, and became half animal. Maybe in like the 2nd century A.D. or something like that, somewhere around there. People started drawing, depictions of this Satan creature. Looked very much like Pan, who was a god in the pantheist pagan tradition before Christianity. And then over the medieval period, he sort of came out in various ways. Sometimes he was a fool. Sometimes he was a comic. He was made fun of. He was a buffoon. And then he developed a lot of power during medieval times. I mean, he became, a much more powerful figure over that period of time, a very long period of time, obviously, and and still stayed fairly powerful. It's sort of like, there's a lot of occultism and mysticism and stuff associated with like the 18th, 17th century, 18th century, 19th century, and I love Satan. I don't want to say I love Satan. That would be a terrible thing for somebody to, take out of context. I love him as a cultural icon, and just as he represents so many different things. So let me just say that 57% of Americans, this is what I read earlier today, believe in Satan as an actual embodiment of evil, an actual entity, a supernatural figure, an entity, a being, right? 57%, over half of Americans, believe in Satan as an actual entity, which I find very surprising. I mean, I don't think of him that way. The way I like to think about Satan is as a symbol, as a metaphor, right? And I think lots of people think of him that way too, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But I think he represents sort of not just the dark side of humanity, but sort of the animal side, the carnal side. He represents like rebellion, and he represents casting off the social order, and and fighting against oppression. Even he represents, he's all of those things. Not just evil, right? Over time he's come to mean so many different things to so many different people, and he's been, he's just evolved, but not even evolved like in a linear fashion. He's just, showed up in all these different ways, and he has a lot of power as a cultural icon, I think. I think of Satan too. I'm interested in him psychologically, like what does he represent psychologically? Because he's associated kind of with like the Freudian id, he's like, he represents the like instant gratification and the child, and this sort of indulgence, and something that has to be controlled, something that has to be, he'll lead you to temptation. He's the trickster, right? So, but he's also a scapegoat in a way, because this way, there's a lot of nasty things that go on in the world. I personally don't believe in evil. I believe that there are terrible things that happen. I believe that there are people, all kinds of people, that are capable of really horrific things given the right circumstances. But I don't believe in evil as some kind of force or some kind of supernatural force or whatever. But I do think that humans psychologically can't handle some of the terrible things that happen to us, And so Satan makes a very nice scapegoat. We can just blame him, and that way that way gods, and our God or whatever, if we're a monotheist, our God, it doesn't have to take any blame for any of the evil in the world. We can just put it all on Satan, blame Satan for everything. So poor guy, right? He gets blamed for all that stuff. But okay, but before I bring Conrad on, which I am going to do in a few minutes, the thing that fascinated me the most I've been interested in in this sort of stuff for a while, but today I was doing some research, and I was interested in sort of like the modern manifestations of Satanism in this country. And what I discovered was really fascinating to me. So there, in the 1960s, okay, and many of you may be familiar with this, of course, but in the 1960s, there's something that it was really the birth of like modern Satanism, and this was the Church of Satan, right, which was founded by this guy Anton LaVey, and he wrote the Satanic Bible. And I read the Satanic Bible when I was like in my 20s, and this book when you read it, it's nothing like you expect. Like you're thinking Satanism, you're thinking sacrifice, exorcism, demons. You're thinking all this stuff. Nothing like that. It's more about Satan, once again, as a symbol, as a metaphor. He's not a being. He's not a supernatural being. And it's more about how to live your life. Like what's an appropriate way to live your life. And that was the Church of Satan, and that was in the 1960s. But then even more recently, in about 2012, 2013, there's been this movement called the Satanic Temple. And don't get the Satanic Temple and the Church of Satan confused because they are completely different in their philosophies, in their view of Satan. The only thing they have in common, I think, is that they both view Satan as a metaphor, as a symbol, not as a being. In fact, they think the whole idea of Satan being a being, in my understanding, as I understand it, is kind of silly to them. Like the whole notion of this supernatural being called Satan is ridiculous, even though they use the symbols. They use the symbols like Baphomet and stuff, or Baphomet, if you will. So, not necessarily, definitely not the Satan as a being residing in hell and all of that, right? But a metaphor, a symbol. But what he symbolizes to the Satanic Temple is very different than what he symbolizes to the Church of Satan. Okay, but it's the only thing they have in common. Once again, is this Satan as a metaphor thing, as a symbol. But what he symbolizes is completely different. So that's where I want to start. So I'm going to start there, except now I'm going to bring Conrad into the conversation. Hopefully he's been listening a little bit. Hi there, Conrad.
Hello.
How's it going?
Not too bad. How are you?
I'm doing all right. So for those of you who don't know Conrad, and I'm not going to try to pronounce your name again. How did I do, though? Did you hear me? How did I do?
You get a 4 out of 5.
4 out of 5? Is that like so like a B, maybe like a B minus?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
About a B minus. Okay, that's not bad. I'll take that. Okay. So Conrad doesn't like the fact that I have horns sticking out of my head and wings, but that's okay. He'll get used to it. So, Conrad, before I mean, I know you have some things you want to talk about, but before we talk, I was wondering if you're familiar with these two different modern churches of Satan in America. The Church of, you're not familiar with either one?
No.
Okay.
I've heard
So,
of Satanism as an expression, but I never
Okay.
got into it.
you've never, so just to reiterate for you, but also for the audience, that there are two totally different churches that have Satan as their main, idol. In both cases, Satan is not really, they're not talking about Satan like the Satan that resides in hell, Satan as an entity, as a supernatural being. They're talking about Satan as a metaphor for like how to be, like how you should be as a human being. Right? And so I want to read you have to listen. I'm going to read you the tenets of the Church of Satan, which is the one from the 60s, okay? And then I want to read you the tenets of the Satanic Temple, which is a modern, like they started in like 2012. This is a brand new, quote unquote, if you want to call it, church. And they're totally different. Okay, so you ready for that?
Yeah.
So just for full disclosure, Conrad, are you a Satan worshiper, or are you? I'm an agnostic. I was telling people I'm an agnostic. What's your? How would you describe your belief system, if you had to summarize it?
Not much as far as that. No belief system.
So like more like an atheist.
Well.
You don't want to go there, but.
Yeah, I grew up. The devil was the symbol of evil.
The symbol of evil, right?
That's essentially in a world. You know what I mean? The devil drives nasty, bad people. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that.
So the devil. So you grew up with the devil as like temptation to sin. Like the devil was tempting people to sin.
Yeah, that's part. Yeah. But we never
That's part
talked.
of it.
Yeah, this was never much of a subject. You know what I mean? I didn't go to religious classes either, so I didn't get much teaching about it.
Yeah.
But at least that was around. I've heard it a little bit more. And the devil was not a subject, so.
Got it. But he played a major role in your experience as a child, or as in.
Well, no, not really, but it was around. It was around.
Yeah, it was around. Okay, so check this out. Okay, I want to read this to you. Ready? You have to listen.
Yep.
All right. This takes something called attention, which neither of us have much of. All right. Satan represents. This is not okay. These are the tenets of the Church of Satan. This is the church that came out of the '60s. This guy Anton LaVey. Okay. Satan represents indulgence instead of abstinence. So actually acting on your desires instead of abstaining from your desires. So in contrast, of course, to Christianity, not being chaste, but actually being, acting on your animal urges, right? Okay, indulging. Satan represents vital existence instead of spiritual pipe dreams. So Satan represents the earthly desires as opposed to these ideas of heaven and stuff like that. All right. Satan represents undefiled wisdom instead of hypocritical self-deceit. So wisdom. Satan represents, I love this one. This is my favorite. Ready? Satan represents kindness to those who deserve it instead of love wasted on ingrates. So be kind, but only to those who actually deserve it. All right. Satan represents vengeance instead of turning the other cheek. So getting revenge. Satan represents responsibility to the responsible instead of concern for psychic vampires. I have no idea what that means. Maybe you can help me out with that one. I don't know what a psychic vampire is, but anyway. Number 7, Satan represents man as just another animal, sometimes better, more often worse, because we have divine, spiritual, and intellectual development. We have become the most vicious animal of all. You'd probably agree with that. All right, number 8. Satan represents all of the so-called sins, as they all lead to physical, mental, or emotional gratification. So that one is saying sin. Sin's good. It's a good thing. It makes you feel gratified. So act on your urges, act on your impulses, I guess. Number 9, Satan has been the best friend of the church. And he has kept it in business. All right, those are the tenets. Those are like the 10, I don't know. They're probably not all that, it's just a nice sort of summary. He wrote the Satanic Bible. It's, he explains it more in there. But those are like the central tenets or whatever of the Church of Satan. What do you think about that? Any comments?
Well, again, it's looking at the devil in a religious way. From the religious stuff I grew up with, the Catholicism, where you're supposed to be very strict, very, not indulge and.
Right. That's like the opposite of the.
Right.
Basically, it's saying do the opposite. Sin. Commit sins, indulge, enjoy your life, give in to your carnal instincts, give in to your.
Yeah, which makes sense because devil in Christianity, in many religion, is opposite of God.
Right.
It fights or he fights. It fights God and things like everything God stands for. So it's when you're saying it works. It's in harmony with that. It's in agreement with that view.
Yeah, but once again, I don't think that, and I I'm sure somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that LaVey thought of Satan as an actual being, though. Satanism is a way of life. It's a way of life. It's a way to approach life. You indulge, you live, you give into your animal instincts, you enjoy your life. That's what it's about. It's about indulging and not, and also I guess but those weird ones like, you got to be kind to the people who deserve it. And so there's sort of like a little bit of a morality there. It's like you're only nice to people if they deserve it. Otherwise, you can, and vengeance is perfectly acceptable. That's another thing in there that's kind of interesting. Anyway, okay, so that's the Church of Satan, 1960s, Anton LaVey, Satanic Bible. All right, this is the church that the Satanic Temple, which is totally different, emerged in 2012, completely opposes LaVey, does not agree with any of the LaVey stuff. They both are associated with Satan, but they're completely different. So this is, in some ways, if you want to oversimplify it, LaVey is like the right wing of the Satan movement, and the Satanic Temple is like the left wing of the Satanic movement. That's I read a little bit of that in it. Okay, so ready? Let me just read you the mission statement of the Satanic Temple. The mission of the Satanic Temple is to encourage benevolence and empathy, reject tyrannical authority. So there's that sort of Satan as like rebel, right? Like throwing off the oppressor. Advocate practical common sense, oppose injustice, and undertake noble pursuits. Not the Satanism that most people would think of when they think of Satanism, right? All right, these are the tenets. One should strive to act with compassion and empathy towards all creatures in accordance with reason. That's not your friendly neighborhood Lucifer. Right? Did you hear me? Hello?
Yeah.
Okay. One should strive to act with compassion and empathy. So the first tenet is you be compassionate and be empathetic towards people. This is the Satanic Temple. Number 2, the struggle for justice is ongoing and necessary pursuit that should prevail over laws and institutions. So they're very political. Like justice, equality, is something that they definitely embrace, right? One's body is inviolable, subject to one's own will alone. That's number 3. I don't know if that's a statement on abortion or if that's just in general. They think that the body is something that everybody owns their own body and you can't tell people what to do with their bodies, I guess. Number 4, the freedom of others should be respected, including the freedom to offend. So that's a freedom of speech tenet there. To willfully and unjustly encroach upon the freedoms of another is to forgo one's own. So freedom of speech. Number 5, beliefs should conform to one's best scientific understanding of the world. One should take care never to distort scientific facts to fit one's beliefs. So tenet number 5 is go science. That's weird. Tenet number 6. There's just two more. People are fallible. If one makes a mistake, one should do one's best to rectify it and resolve any harm that might have been caused. So forgiveness. Number 7, every tenet is a guiding principle designed to inspire nobility in action and thought. Sounds like the Eightfold Path or something, right? The spirit of compassion, wisdom, and justice should always prevail over the written or spoken word. Does that so? Those are the 7 tenets of the Satanic Temple.
Yeah, I never knew that.
Yeah, but isn't that fascinating? Like like the average person who, the 57% of Americans who think that Satan is an actual being. If somebody walked up and said, "I'm a Satanist," I belong to the temple I belong to the Satanic Temple. Most people would envision, you're sacrificing animals and you're doing, whatever, you're having orgies or whatever. They wouldn't think of any of that stuff.
Right.
Yeah. I just find that kind of hilarious and also just eye-opening and interesting. Just how did this guy become a social justice warrior? That's what I want to know. How did he evolve into that? You don't know? All right. Well, looks like we have a caller, huh? Should I?
Hi, I'll be behind the scenes here.
That's Mark from behind the scenes.
Hi.
That's the voice of Satan
right.
coming.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. For those of you that are in the waiting room, if you have a question, just let me know.
Yeah. All right. So I was going to say Satan. Conrad,
Yes.
what do you have to? What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts?
Well, so my interest in this wasn't the American cults or philosophies. It was
Right.
more that in Polish, my first language,
Mm-hmm.
devil, we use diabeł, which comes from Greek diablos.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when I looked at the meanings of the diablos in Greek, the original meanings had nothing to do with evil. It later was adopted by Christianity and the good, you know what I mean?
Yes.
God is good and the sins, Greeks didn't have concept. They had similar, but they didn't give it as strong of a name. So diablos, what it meant in original Greek was a prankster, was a slanderer.
Right. A trickster, a prankster. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Somebody who does
Right.
disorder, causes a degree of disorder and is sort of loose.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so stirs things up. Prankster, stirs slanderer. That's a little more serious. That's lying about somebody, bad mouth. That's
Right.
that's a little more serious. But a prankster, it's a jokes. It's picking on somebody with fun. Not with meanness.
Right.
And so when I started looking at it from the Greek original word, because devil comes, I think the Germanic people of Celtic changed the way it was pronounced, diablo,
Yeah.
into the devil. The B became a V.
Oh yeah.
When it went into the more German English-speaking
Right.
countries. But the original, so I like the roots. I like to learn about the roots of things.
Yeah. No, that's fascinating.
And,
Yeah, because he has he has a lot of names. Obviously, he she. I should say he she because it's, not really once again not necessarily male. Anyway, Satan, Lucifer,
right, but those came later, right?
the devil. I mean, but all of those things, came out of sort of some of them came like all of his names came out of sort of mistranslation sometimes, or like you're saying, like he transforms from like this, just like this trickster, this prankster, into the embodiment of all evil
Right.
over
Right.
time, right? And but it's not like a linear transformation. I mean, like he goes through all these different. I was reading about like in medieval plays, Satan would often come on the stage and be like this buffoon. He was like this. Everybody made fun of him. He was a joke, and he was stupid. Like they depicted him as easily like made fun of, easily fooled, and and he wasn't always like this all powerful being, but he's gone through all these different transformations over time,
Right.
but always very but always a powerful like icon,
I grew up where the meaning meant more like the symbol of evil. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. And for a lot of people, that's what a lot of, people in, Western civilization, and in the Christian tradition, certainly, that's how they see him.
So I was surprised to read the roots of the word and the meaning, how Greeks used it. It was more of a, prankster,
Right.
somebody who divides things,
Right.
and in a way, I started to look at it, it changed my mind a little bit. He was questioning things, the God's order, there is the rules, there is, and then let's do something different. You know what I mean? Just like he caused, to get rid of, to kick Adam and Eve from heaven, right?
Yeah.
right? He talked,
Well, yeah, right. So let's talk about that. So, I mean, I'm not a biblical scholar by any means, right? But my understanding is that like the serpent in Genesis
right. The serpent was right.
was not originally, like when it was written at the time of the writing of Genesis, it wasn't like that was Satan. That became
Hebrew didn't
Satan
have it, right? Hebrew
later.
didn't have it, devil, right?
In retrospect, it was like, oh, that must have been Satan seducing Eve, and and then of course Eve gets is blamed for all the for everything, really, because she was tempted by Satan, by his giant phallus or something like that, and then tempted Adam, and that's why we die, right? That's why we have pain in childbirth, and that's why everybody has to die. Thanks,
Well,
Eve.
so-
Thanks,
so-
Satan. Yeah.
Well, so to me, the word that the devil didn't stop meaning the abstract, but it all the abstract evil, or the impersonation of evil.
Yeah.
the-
Personification of evil. Yeah.
Right. But it started to mean also challenging the order,
Yes.
and hence promoting change,
Yes.
which is good. Evolution needs that.
Yeah, and
We
I think also like oppressors over time have assigned have called things satanic
Right.
when they were threatening
Right.
to defy
Right.
the order of things.
Right. So when I say order, whether it's religious order or God's order, the rules of the universe, the rules
Right.
of whatever. And I found it like, hey, this ain't so bad, trying to break the rules. I always enjoyed doing that in a minor way.
Yeah, right. No, it's good, right? It's good
How
to
you
stir.
learn.
Good to
It's how
stir the
you learn.
good to stir the pot, and obviously, if you're being oppressed,
Right.
like if
And
you're a
it's about-
slave or a serf or this
No,
is
but I guess-
this is a good thing. You want to these
I also meant as a learning opportunity.
yeah.
You do
Oh,
something.
you just mean in general, it's a good, yeah.
Right.
that-
You do
but-
something a
right.
little different. Break what your parents tell you or the
Yeah.
teachers tell you.
Oh, I
and
thought we have people coming in. Oh.
And sometimes you'll discover something new. Most
Yeah.
of the time you get hurt, something you get broken.
Yeah,
Most of the time it won't give you good. That's the devil part.
yeah. And
But also, we
go
have
ahead.
to do that.
Yeah.
As an engineer or whatever, a little bit of a scientist, we need to do things like that. Do experiments, and sometimes they will blow up in your face. But if you never do it, if you're afraid of everything, just follow the rules. We'll never there'll be no progress. We'll never learn anything new.
Yep.
Because we'll never do anything different. So
yeah, you're right. You got to throw off the reins of yeah. You can't just always do things the same way. There always has to be change.
so the devil
Yeah.
is in our nature, in the universe.
Yeah, we always have to
human
rebel.
nature, and it's necessary. So I come,
Yeah.
that got me to think that, hey, maybe devil ain't so bad. Oh, then I found the good things about it. Not evil itself. Being mean and
Yeah,
crazy.
this is what we're doing here. We're trying
I don't do
to
that. I just
to
meant
improve his image, her image.
break-
Okay,
to break
so we do.
rules
Go ahead.
to some degree. Again, depending what rule.
Yeah.
There's always limits.
Right. We do have a caller, I think. So let's let a caller in. Hello.
Hey,
Welcome to Let's Have Words.
hi guys, can you hear me?
Hi, it's Ann.
I haven't seen you in forever. How are you doing?
Excellent.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. What brings you on to our
I
humble
just,
program?
I hit it lucky, I guess. Good timing.
The devil brings it here.
It
What do
could
you-
be. The devil
Wait,
made me do it.
The
That's
devil made you do
Conrad.
it. The devil led you here, tempted you.
Something let
onto
me
the
here. I don't
program.
know. All right, I was typing away, but I
Okay.
don't really know anything about Satan, the Satanist Bible, or anything. But in the idea of Satan,
Yeah.
the idea that it has come to represent in the Christian and Judeo-Christian religions
Yeah,
is evil.
definitely.
It's evil and it's moral. It's immoral.
Right.
It's and you talked about these two different camps, which I didn't even know. That's very
Yeah.
interesting.
That's all like American Satanism.
Right.
That's arisen over the last, since the 60s.
So what do those American Satanism things
Yeah.
think of the evil?
So I don't-
because they don't have
It-
a
yeah.
representation the way. What would that be for them? Is it what's
Yeah. Well, it becomes, I think, and once again, I'm not a scholar either, right? We're just, because we're just like, we're just bantering here. But like, I, I think they're taking this symbol, like Satan as a symbol. Like it's not that he's evil. It's that Satan is, embodies like human nature, and like sort of our animal instincts and that sort of thing. Like it's almost like they're taking this image or this icon, and they're turning him into more like a lifestyle, And you'd have to read the Satanic Bible, which I actually read when I was in my 20s, but I don't really remember much from it, which sort of goes more deeply into like what the belief system from that comes out of that church. But yeah, they don't see. I don't think they see evil. I don't think they see Satan as evil. They see it as indulging our animal instincts. Just enjoying our lives, basically. But there's other aspects to it too, like revenge and that sort of thing. But a big part of it is indulging in.
So they don't associate any real judgment
No,
to human behavior,
no.
except the two different camps. Which sounds like I don't think it was the Satan Bible, but the other one you talked about.
The temple is like a modern. That started in like 2012. I mean, it's really recent, and they're very political, and they're very left wing. They embrace left wing politics, and they do things like they try to get Satan statues onto like city property where there's the 10 Commandments. Or they do things like that, and they're very political, and there isn't a shred of evil in their interpretation of Satanism.
Isn't that kind of interesting in a way?
Fascinating. Like, how did it get there? I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, so we have this one belief system that tries to, I think, in a way, obviously, just even the fact that you have this good versus evil idea, just the notion of it, whereas they don't even have that. It's not like that even exists.
No, they're not even religious. I mean,
No,
they're
but
not.
I mean,
They're not even really religious
their,
necessarily.
Well, I don't mean it. Well, it is kind of. It is must be somewhat like a religion in the way that it's. What would they call it? Is it a
I don't know.
political movement or? I mean,
maybe like a movement. It's more like how do you, I wish we had somebody that represented so they could explain. But in my interpretation, it's more like this is how you should be. You should be compassionate. You should be noble. You should be forgiving. Like it's more like that. It's that aspect of like telling you how to live. But how it got associated with this guy
exactly
is bizarre to me. Like totally bizarre.
that really is a strange thing. How does it get associated?
How does it get there? I don't know. I would love to find out.
You should be compassionate because we are uncompassionate. You should have, because we are greedy and we are selfish. There's all these different dynamics of our nature.
Yes.
But they just, anyway, nice to see you.
I'll let the next. It's great to see you, Anne. Thank you. Great conversation. Thank you. All right.
Yeah, I think they took the devil more as a joke than a serious, the religious aspect. Well, the people you mentioned.
I think so too. I think it's more. I don't know. It is kind of a joke. But they're just. I think they're just trying to disrupt the social order, right? So by.
That's another thing, right? By joking about it, by making lighting.
Well, They also what they try to do. That when I say they, I mean the temple, right? So one of their things is they try to get statues of, they try to get statues onto city property where they're putting up like the 10 Commandments. They think, the country, there's this Christian, the Christian majority is sort of, has Christian privilege, right? So they want to sort of subvert Christian privilege, where it's like, oh, you can have your 10 Commandments. Well, that I can have my statue of Baphomet too. You can't, and so, or they try to get like city councils to open up their proceedings with, satanic prayers instead of. But it's not necessarily. It is kind. Is it a joke? No, it's not.
I think they are trying to diminish the seriousness of what it meant in the past.
Maybe.
Both the religion in general and the devil as there used to be this nasty object, and it's like make a joke out of it.
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe some of it is
I think
sort of
it's diminish to lower the weight of devil is to lower the weight of religion. The weight it had over people over the longest time. So
yeah,
I think they are trying to change society a little bit in that way.
Yes, but definitely this is so like we were saying, Satan has a lot of faces. Satan has a lot of manifestations, and one of them is the rebel. So this is like rebelling. It's just rebelling against the order, and that's what he represents. He's a metaphor, right? He's a metaphor. He's not an actual being. So so I think you're right. I mean, I think they're embracing sort of the trappings just to sort of be rebellious.
I mean, in ancient Greece, it just meant it was a verb and a noun, to slander somebody or be a slanderer, it's the root of the word, sort of a prankster, somebody who divides people, who divides things.
Yeah.
It's like, just sort of causes trouble, if you will, like confuse, tries to.
Right.
Well, not
right.
confuse.
Just like the Harlequin or whatever, like just disrupting, just throwing a wrench into the system.
Right. That's exactly right. That's what I.
Right. Yep.
That's
definitely.
What in Greek.
So
Greek and
yeah. So I guess my understanding of that. Well, first of all, almost all religions have some kind of not necessarily a figure of evil, but they do something with evil. Either they have demons, or they have gods that have both good and evil inside of them, or they have like the Mayans and the Aztecs had an underworld, and so like you go all over the world, and they're just in almost every tradition there's something. They're not necessarily a Satan figure, but there might be demons or some way to embody evil, some way to personify evil.
Well, Hinduism, I believe, did not have that.
Maybe not. Yeah. I'm in fact not sure, but Buddhists did. They had like somebody who tempted the Buddha away from enlightenment.
Yep.
Yeah. So there was like the temptation there. Judaism has some kind of concept of the. I don't think they have like an actual devil, but
no, they do not. Right.
But there's some sort of notion that it's more like it's not a noun. Like the word Satan or whatever is not a noun; it's a verb. Like it's more like, once again, temptation. Like something that's going to tempt you into, living doing bad things or living a bad life. And but Satan, as we understand him, like the guy behind me here, I guess kind of started in he showed, so Lucifer or whatever shows up in the Bible, I understand, right? In the New Testament anyway. And
this New Testament
at first, right? But he doesn't get like his hooves and his horns and his, he doesn't get all that stuff, the hooves and the horns and the giant penis and all that. He doesn't get that until later. Until 200 AD or something, or 300 AD or somewhere in the early part.
In medieval Christianity got stronger and more.
And then he got right. But he was pieced together. Like, I think this manifestation of him comes from the 18th century or something like that. This particular thing behind me, the Baphomet, comes from like the 18th century or 19th century even, something like that. Much later, but there are pictures of him throughout the medieval period. Yeah, and I understand that and I was what I was curious about, but I didn't get a chance to research it, where like the whole concept of a pact with the devil comes from, like making a pact with the devil.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I've never read the actual the roots of it, but it's again, it's giving into the temptation, but it's worse than that. It's like being a traitor, I think.
Yeah.
Being a traitor to your king or stuff like that.
Making a pact with the devil. Isn't it more like your I don't know, your life sucks, so it's your like last chance to be successful. It's like it's your last strategy after you've exhausted everything else. Yeah.
Surely that's part of the desperation, absolutely.
Yeah, but I don't know where it comes from. I don't know how long the pact concept has been around. Yeah. Maybe somebody out there that knows. So it's interesting too. Is of course the devil's music, right? So, like the Catholic Church famously, banned the tritone or whatever. I hope that's true.
Oh yeah. There was
something like that, right? The tritone, which is the flatted fifth, right?
I forget what it was, but there was something. Yeah.
Yeah, it's using the flatted fifth, and of course in this country, blues music was of course associated with the devil, mostly because of racism, and then that spilled into rock, into rock and roll, and then of course all of the imagery and the Satan imagery in rock and roll,
My grandfather, when I used to listen to Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple, he thought it was devil's music.
Yeah, right. It's the devil's music, and once again, why it's the devil's music? Well, I think with the blue, that was basically racism, but there's also in rock and roll, there's definitely an element of that rebellion again, right? It's like.
Right.
Like rock and roll is wanting to fuck you to the social order,
When I was 14 and I would listen
That's
to
why
it.
it's the devil's music. It's very convenient to to make it the devil's music because it's going to disrupt.
Exactly. It was a little bit
society.
Violent, wasn't smooth and calming. It was, arousing, rebel rousing, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And deliberately shocking,
stuff like that.
Yeah.
And he hated me listening to it because now what am I going to do,
Right.
What kind of crazy thing it's going to inspire me to do.
Right. I know.
And it had some of that effect.
Right. It's going to lead you, once again, temptation, right? Rock and roll is going to... It's going to lead you to temptation. It's going to cause you to commit sins.
I can do any crazy thing I want. It did give you that freedom that could do bad things.
Yeah.
If you don't follow all the rules that elders teach you. So it was a rebellion. Of course, definitely.
I do think it's somewhat good. Like this whole notion of sin, right? Like say, having too much sex or drinking too much alcohol, or when it comes to those sorts of sin, gambling too much. Those sorts of sins are. It's true that if you indulge in them, they'll destroy you.
Yeah, too much, absolutely.
Right. So it's almost sin is almost, to me, is almost like it's a warning. Like if you indulge to it, like great, the people, the Church of Satan wants you to indulge. That's all well and good because it's enjoyable and it's fun, but it's not enjoyable to have venereal disease, and it's not enjoyable to have liver failure. You know what I mean? So it's good to stay, in some ways it's like, don't sin because, it's going to get you in trouble. There's some truth to that. All right. Do we have another call? Hold on. Just hold that thought. Sure. Hi. We have another call. Oh, how's it going? It's Elaine.
No idea.
Hello there.
Hi.
Good to see you guys.
Good to see you too. Conrad, you know Elaine, right? Do you remember Elaine? Okay.
It's been a while, but.
Yeah.
You're still smoking. That's Satan. Satan has you.
No, because I'm overpowering nature. I'm God.
I stopped believing in real beings like that a long time ago. But
Yeah.
I do believe, certain people come to mind when I hear the word Satan. Like, and I try not to start a political discussion, but Joe Manchin, for instance,
Yeah.
The corporate greed that has caused climate crisis that keeps us stuck. I think the Satan that we've been talking about, or is somebody that they, with a small s, so they can look at us and say, see what you're doing wrong, and we're running after each other and thinking that we're bad. The real powerful people who really run this place they're the evil to me.
That's interesting. Yeah.
That causes pandemics, that causes climate change, that causes class warfare.
Right.
And isn't it easier to put us into a category of sinner? And, we do things to each other that are wrong, but they're laughing while they know what they're doing is absolutely against the will of the people. And
absolutely, good point, Elaine. I think that's excellent.
That's my
excellent
view of evil.
Right, and we didn't really talk much about that, but that's another manifestation, certainly.
I think it's a way to control us.
Satan.
And so,
sure.
The Catholic Church originally you had to pay for confession, and Martin Luther, called them on that. And it's a constant battle to try to have justice and freedom. And I think that newer Satan Church is probably trying to make something more relevant than what's been going on, because the old religion is just killing us, literally.
So trying to redefine it a little bit.
Just throwing it in the mix.
That's right. No, that's excellent, Elaine. I think I wish we had more time to delve into that, because I totally agree with you. And that's another manifestation of Satan. Instead of, we've been talking about people in power, using Satanism to keep people oppressed, but they're actually the ones that are doing the real damage, ultimately. Yeah, people in power are the ones that can have the ability to do the most damage. All right, so Conrad, last word. We've got about 3 more minutes. So thank you so much, callers. I'm so glad we had people coming on. That was really interesting, and Diane, that was wonderful. Thank you so much Elaine. Thank you so much for coming on. Conrad, last word.
I just have a word about what was last said. Is that the devil is like a person that leads to self-destruction. That life is no good. God created life. Well, I'm going to destroy it. This is where you can look at it a little bit like that, from the big idea of the devil.
That's right.
That it's opposite of God. And, there are sides to it that make sense, because, we definitely, greed and things like that, personal gain, hurts the rest of the people, whether it's military, whether it's business. Whether it's using plastics or whatever.
Yeah. Well, we took it all the way to from we talked about Satan from a psychological perspective, a social perspective, a religious perspective, and that was kind of the idea, just to kind of explore this symbol in all of her manifestations over time. And I mean, the more you learn about it, the more interesting it is. Like how much change, how much evolution Satan has gone through over time, and how he maybe Satan represents that side of ourselves that we all have inside of ourselves.
Right. This is the old expression. When I was little, or whatever we grew up with, you have a good angel, on one shoulder sitting on your shoulder, and a devil sitting on the other shoulder, and they both try to talk you into, do the right thing, do the best, go their way.
Yes.
And we all have a degree of struggle, and we all deal with it differently. Some of us poorly, and then you see the results.
Yeah.
Some,
Yep.
So
definitely.
you know, it is in our nature as well. You know, it is
Right.
it is universal in some ways. You know, I
That's
had
right.
cats that were nice and that were nasty. You know, you could say, oh, these, you know, this
Yeah.
cat, you know, this cat was angry at things. He had more devil in him.
Right. The
You know,
devil inside, the devil in all of us.
right. So this is, you
All
know,
right.
the good and the bad angels sitting on both of your, you know, in one of each of your shoulders and trying to
Yeah.
talk to you here and, you know, for this, no, for that. And,
That's right. Yeah. So what if you're deaf? What if you're deaf in one ear? What are you gonna do? You're gonna always like me. I'm like deaf in one ear. What am I gonna do? All right. So Conrad, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us today, rescuing us, and thank you, Elaine and Anne, for coming on the show. It's awesome to have people come on and join us. So we didn't get to all of the various faces of Satan, but we covered a lot of territory, a lot of ground. So Let's Have Words comes to you every Sunday from 8 p.m. Eastern Time from Southern New Hampshire. We talk about a whole variety of topics. Today we talked about the faces of Satan, and last week we talked about the increases in depression and anxiety in teens. And the week before that, we talked about green burials. And the week before that, we talked about bluegrass music. Don't worry, not every episode am I going to go back over all the shows, because eventually I'm not going to be able to remember them all. But just to let you know that we cover all kinds of things, from politics, arts, culture, science, technology, psychology, whatever. So if you have a topic that you think might be interesting to talk about on Let's Have Words, please contact us. We would love to talk to you. We're trying to line people up for interviews, and so we would definitely entertain the possibility of having you on. So if you have something you think would be good for this format, please let us know. And have a wonderful week, and please remember to keep the lines of communication open.